The rain fell hard on the outer edge of the human colony base, tapping loudly on the metal walls. Technician Darren was finishing his night shift, checking the sensors near the fence when a strange sound caught his attention. Something like a weak cry, almost lost in the storm. He turned and squinted through the rain. At first, he thought it was just another broken drone, or maybe a fallen branch. But as he stepped closer, his heart skipped a beat. A figure lay on the ground, curled up near the fence, barely moving. It was a woman, or something close to it. Her skin was a soft, pale blue with a purplish tone. Long white hair clung to her face, soaked from the rain. She wore a strange outfit, torn in several places. Her small, elf-like ears twitched as thunder cracked above them. Her breathing was weak, and her eyes slowly opened as she looked up at him. "Please," she whispered in a shaky voice, "just one night." Darren froze. Every protocol screamed at him to call security. A non-human on the colony was a serious matter. But something in her voice stopped him. It wasn't fear or danger, it was sorrow. Deep sorrow. He quickly looked around. No one was nearby. The cameras were offline in this sector due to maintenance. Ironically, work he had delayed. Without thinking further, Darren knelt beside her. "You're hurt," he said softly. She didn't answer. Her body shivered from the cold. "Can you walk?" he asked. She shook her head. He made a choice then, a dangerous one. Carefully, he lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than she looked, and her body trembled with each breath. As he carried her through the rain, she leaned her head on his shoulder. Inside the back hallway of the base, Darren took her into the unused supply room. Safe, quiet, and away from cameras. He laid her gently on a blanket and covered her with a thermal sheet. She looked up at him, her lips trembling. "I'm not here to harm. I have one night left. I want to feel something before it ends." Darren didn't understand. One night left. "What's your name?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Kaleri." He stared at her, confused and curious. Who was she? What did she mean by one night? And why come here, of all places? Kaleri closed her eyes, her face peaceful but tired. Darren sat down beside her, heart still racing. Whatever this was, he couldn't walk away now. Not tonight. His room was quiet except for the soft sound of Kaleri's breathing. Darren sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, eyes fixed on the strange woman lying under the thermal sheet. Questions spun in his mind like a storm. Who was she? Why only one night? Kaleri opened her eyes slowly. She looked at Darren with calmness but also sadness. Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. "You didn't call for help. Why?" Darren shrugged. "You didn't seem like a threat. And something about the way you looked at me. It didn't feel right to leave you out there." She smiled faintly. "You're kind. Humans. I always wondered if the stories were true." "What stories?" Kaleri looked away. "Where I come from, they said humans feel everything too much. That you cry, love, laugh, even fight, just to protect someone you care about. They said you live short lives, but you burn bright." Darren tilted his head. "That's not far off, actually." Kaleri's smile faded. "I wanted to see that before I die." Her words hit Darren like a punch. He leaned forward. "Wait, what do you mean die?" "My body," she explained, "was made for a mission. I wasn't born. I was created to serve, to travel far through space, gather data, then return. But the mission failed. And so will I. My systems are shutting down. Tonight is my last night." Darren stared at her in shock. She spoke as if she had accepted it. No fear, no anger, just quiet acceptance. "But you escaped," he said. "You came here. Why?" "I wanted to feel something real," Kaleri whispered. "Not wires, not programming. Something alive. Something human. If I must die, I want to do it after seeing what it means to live." Darren didn't know what to say. This alien woman was facing her end, and all she wanted was a piece of life. A sudden sound outside the room made them both freeze. Footsteps. Darren quietly stood and peeked out the door. Just a night guard walking by. Nothing serious. He turned back to Kilari. "You're safe here. No one comes to this room." She looked relieved. "Thank you." Darren hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "If you really have one night, then maybe I can help. Maybe I can show you a little of what being human feels like." Kilari looked at him, surprised. "You would do that for me?" He nodded. "Yeah, I think it's the least I can do." For the first time, she smiled with a little warmth. It was soft, tired, but real. "One night," she whispered. "Let's make it count." Darren stood by the small heater, warming 2 cups of instant tea. He didn't know if Kilari could even drink human things, but she accepted the cup with both hands, her fingers shaking. She brought it to her lips, sipped carefully, and her eyes widened in surprise. "It's warm," she said softly. "It tastes strange, bitter, but it makes my chest feel light." Darren chuckled. "That's tea. It's not amazing, but it helps during long nights." Kilari held the cup close, as if afraid the warmth might disappear. Darren watched her, amazed by how fascinated she was with something so small. To her, even tea was a treasure. "I've never had food before," she admitted, glancing at him. "Only energy packs. Flavorless. Just numbers." He opened a snack bar and handed it to her. "Try this. It's sweet." She took a small bite, and her eyes closed. A tiny hum escaped her lips. "Sweet," she whispered, "and soft. What is this feeling in my mouth?" Darren smiled. "Pleasure. Satisfaction. Humans eat not just to live, but to enjoy the taste." Kilari looked at the bar, like it was a rare jewel. "Your world is full of strange miracles." For a moment, silence filled the room. Not the awkward kind, but a warm, soft pause. Then Kilari asked, "Why are you helping me? I'm not one of you." Darren leaned back against the wall, thinking. "I don't know. Maybe because no one deserves to die alone, and you didn't come here to harm us. You just wanted to feel alive. That's human enough to me." Kilari looked down, her pale fingers holding the half-eaten snack. "In my world," she said quietly, "feelings are dangerous. Attachments make us weak. That's what they taught us. But I always wondered, how could something that makes your heart beat faster be bad?" Her voice cracked a little. "I wanted to know. Just once." Darren looked at her, and something in his chest stirred. She wasn't just some alien running from a lab. She was someone trying to understand life in her final hours. A soul seeking a final spark before fading. He stood up. "Come on." Kilari blinked. "Where?" He offered his hand. "There's a place in the colony no one visits at night. I want to show you something." She hesitated. "It's not safe." "You came here for life, right?" He said gently. "Let me show you a piece of it." Kilari slowly reached out, placing her soft hand in his. Her fingers were cold, but her touch was delicate, almost careful, as if she was still learning what touch even meant. Together, they stepped into the hallway, leaving the quiet supply room behind. For Kilari, every step was a risk. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. The hallway was dim, quiet except for the soft buzz of the lights. Darren and Kilari moved slowly, careful not to be seen. The night guards rarely checked the older sections of the base. That worked in their favor. Kilari walked beside him, her eyes scanning everything. The walls, the lights, even the floor under her feet. "You humans live in strange places," she whispered. Darren chuckled. "This isn't even the nice part. Wait till you see the dome." "The dome?" she asked. "You'll see." They reached a locked door at the end of the corridor. Darren entered a code. The door slid open with a soft hiss. A wave of cool, fresh air brushed past them. Kilari gasped. Inside was an old botanical dome, once used for research and testing. Now it was quiet, forgotten by most. Tall glass walls showed the starry sky above, and green plants, some alive, some wilted, filled the space with color and smell. Kaleri stepped forward slowly, eyes wide. She touched a leaf, ran her fingers across a flower petal. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Darren watched her, smiling. "This is where I come when I need to think." She looked at him. "Why would you hide something like this? People forget what matters. They get busy. This place reminds me to slow down." Kaleri nodded and walked deeper into the dome. She sat on a bench, looking up at the stars through the glass ceiling. "In my life," she said quietly, "I've only seen stars from a ship. But here, they feel close, like they're watching." Darren sat beside her. "We humans like to believe stars carry wishes. We look up and hope." She smiled. "Then I will make a wish." "What will you wish for?" She turned to him. "More time." The words were soft, filled with quiet pain. Darren didn't speak. What could he say? She was dying. Her body was shutting down. He couldn't fix that. All he could do was give her these moments. He stood up and pulled out a small device from his pocket. A music player. "Have you ever heard music?" he asked. Kaleri tilted her head. "Only in recordings." It didn't make sense. He tapped a button. A slow, calm melody began to play. The gentle sound filled the dome. Kaleri closed her eyes. Her body swayed slightly with the rhythm. "This," she whispered. "This I understand." Darren smiled and offered his hand again. "Dance with me." Kaleri opened her eyes, surprised. "I don't know how." "Just follow me." She stood, shaky but curious. Darren placed one hand on her waist. The other held her hand. Slowly, they moved. Awkward at first. But soon, their steps found rhythm. Under the stars, in a forgotten dome, a human and an alien danced in silence. For Kaleri, it wasn't just a dance. It was life. The music still played softly as Darren and Kaleri moved in slow steps under the stars. Her body was weak, but her eyes were full of light. Each step, each turn, felt like a victory. Kaleri looked up at Darren. "Is this what it means to be human?" Darren smiled. "Part of it. We feel. We share moments like this." She placed her hand on her chest. "My heart, it beats faster now." He gently touched her wrist. "It's not fear. That's what we call excitement." She looked surprised. "Excitement. I like that word." They sat again on the bench, both a little tired. Darren handed her a bottle of water. She drank it slowly, then closed her eyes for a moment. "My systems are slowing," she said softly. "But I don't feel pain. Just a strange warmth." He turned to her, concern in his voice. "How much time do you have left?" "Maybe hours," she whispered. "But I'm not afraid. Not anymore." Darren looked at her carefully. "You said you were made, not born. So, you've never had a real life." She nodded. "I was built in a lab. Trained, tested, used. I followed orders. I completed tasks. But I never laughed, never cried, never felt anything like tonight." Darren's throat tightened. "That's not fair." Kaleri smiled faintly. "It doesn't matter now. Because tonight, I laughed. I danced. I saw stars." She turned her face toward him, her eyes shining. "And I felt something else." Darren leaned forward. "What do you mean?" She looked down. "When you held my hand, when you smiled at me, I felt a strange pull. Something inside me wanted to stay close. Is that love?" Darren blinked, heart pounding. He had no answer ready, but he reached for her hand and held it gently. "Yes," he said softly. "That's how it begins." Kaleri's lips parted in surprise. A soft color touched her cheeks, almost like a blush. "Then I'm glad," she whispered. "I'm glad I found you, even if just for one night." They sat in silence, fingers still entwined. Suddenly, A light flashed in the sky. Darren looked up. A patrol drone. His heart sank. "They're scanning," he said. "We have to go back." Kaylari nodded slowly, but there was no fear in her eyes. They stood, and Darren guided her back through the hallways, careful and quick. She walked slower now. Her legs shook slightly. When they reached the supply room again, she sat down heavily, her breathing uneven. Darren knelt beside her. "You need rest." Kaylari looked at him one more time. "If I fall asleep, I may not wake up." His chest tightened. "Then I'll stay right here," he said, "until morning." Kaylari smiled, her hand still in his. "For the first time, I don't want the night to end." Darren sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, watching over Kaylari. Her breathing was soft and steady now, though her skin looked even paler than before. She was asleep, her fingers still loosely wrapped around his hand. The room was quiet. For a moment, it felt like time had stopped. But then, a loud beep. Darren jumped up. The emergency lights flashed red. A voice echoed through the hallway speakers. "Warning. Unknown biosignature detected. All security units report to Sector 4. His heart dropped. Sector 4, that was where they were. Darren rushed to the small screen on the wall and pulled up the camera feed. A patrol team was already sweeping through the corridor nearby. "They're coming," he whispered. Kaylari stirred, opening her eyes slowly. "What's wrong?" "They found you," Darren said, trying to stay calm. "They're scanning for life signs. You triggered their system." Kaylari sat up, wincing. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause trouble." "No," Darren said quickly. "This is my fault. I should have hidden you better." She shook her head gently. "You gave me something no one else did. You gave me kindness." He paced the room, thinking fast. "They'll reach here in minutes. If they find you, they'll take you back. You'll die in some lab, hooked to machines." "I know," she said, voice quiet but steady. "But I'm too weak to run." Darren stared at her, then looked toward the vent in the corner of the room. "Maybe you don't have to run," he said. "Just hide. I'll deal with the rest." She frowned. "You'll get in trouble." He met her eyes. "I don't care." Without another word, he helped her toward the vent. It was tight, dusty, and dark, but she fit inside. He handed her a blanket and closed the cover carefully. Footsteps echoed outside. Doors opened and closed. Then, a knock. Darren opened the door with a sleepy look on his face. A guard stood there with a scanner in hand. "We're checking for a possible intruder. Stay in your room." Darren nodded. "No one came in here. Just me. I've been working late." The guard's scanner beeped, but Darren quickly coughed and stepped forward. "Sorry," he said. "I haven't slept in a while. Maybe it's picking up my heat twice or something." The guard gave him a long stare, then nodded. "Fine. Stay alert." When the door closed again, Darren sighed in relief. He opened the vent. Kaylari's eyes met his. That was close. He helped her out carefully, laying her back on the soft blanket. "Maybe we don't have much time left," he said, brushing her hair from her face. "But we still have this night." Kaylari looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Then let's make it count." And just like that, the fear faded, for now. Because in that small room, even with danger outside, they still had a piece of forever. The room was silent again, but the quiet felt heavier now, filled with the weight of what was to come. Kaylari lay on the blanket, her eyes closed, but her breathing was shallow. Darren watched her closely, sitting beside her, his heart pounding in his chest. He had no idea how much time was left. He could feel it in the air, the sense that something was slipping away, out of his control. He had promised to help her. He had promised to make this night matter. But the truth was, he didn't know if he could stop what was happening inside her. Kaylari opened her eyes slowly and turned her head to look at him. There was no panic in her gaze, just a deep calmness, a peace that made Darren's chest tighten. She had accepted her fate. She wasn't afraid anymore. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want to bring you into this." "Don't say that," Darren replied, his voice soft but firm. "You didn't ask for any of this. I made my choice too." She gave him a small, tired smile. "I never thought I'd feel this much in such a short time. You've given me more than anyone else ever did." Darren's heart ached at her words. He had spent years helping others, fixing machines, running diagnostics, but none of it had ever felt as important as this. Being with her, in this moment, trying to help her live when time was slipping away. "I wish I could do more for you," Darren said, sitting closer. "I wish I could give you more time. You deserve it." Kaylari reached out weakly and touched his hand, her fingers cold but gentle. "You've already given me what I needed most, someone who cared, someone who saw me as more than just a machine." Her words made Darren feel like he had been given a gift. He squeezed her hand softly, his eyes meeting hers. In that moment, he didn't care about the rest of the world. He only cared about her, about making her final moments feel like they mattered. She looked at him, her expression soft but sad. "I never had a chance to love. I never had a chance to live fully." Darren didn't know how to respond. The thought of losing her, of her never having experienced love, was unbearable. She deserved more than this. But instead of speaking, he just leaned in, gently kissing her forehead, his heart full of unspoken words. Kaylari closed her eyes at his touch, a single tear slipping from the corner of her eye. "Thank you, Darren. I think I understand now. This is what it means to live." Darren stayed by her side, watching her closely, knowing that their time together was running out. The last hour was slipping away, but in that brief moment, it felt like forever. There was nothing left to do but be there for her, until the very end. Darren sat beside Kaylari, the room now bathed in the dim light of the emergency lantern. The storm had stopped, but the weight of the moment hung in the air like the calm before a final, inevitable crash. Her breaths were slow, shallow, each one coming with greater difficulty. He couldn't help but watch her, torn between wanting to do something and knowing there was nothing he could do. Her body was failing, and no matter how hard he tried to think of a way to help, there was no solution. She was slipping away. Kaylari opened her eyes and turned toward him. Her gaze was soft, but there was an unmistakable sadness in her expression. "I'm sorry, Darren," she said softly. "You've given me more than I ever imagined. But it's time. It's just time." "No," he said quickly, shaking his head. "I won't let it happen. I'll find a way." His voice cracked, and for a moment, the tears he had been holding back threatened to spill. Kaylari reached out a hand, touching his arm gently. "I've lived more in one night than I could have ever dreamed of. You've given me life in a way that no machine, no program, ever could. For that, I'm grateful." Darren stared at her hand, willing himself to remain calm, but his mind raced. There had to be something he could do. The solution. A fix. Some way to save her. As he thought, something caught his eye. A small, dusty console at the back of the room. It was part of the base's old emergency medical equipment. It hadn't been used in years, and Darren hadn't thought about it in ages. But there was a strange impulse in his gut, something deep inside him telling him to check it out. "Stay here," Darren said, his voice firm, though his heart was racing. "I'll be right back." Kaylari nodded slowly, her eyes still watching him as he moved toward the console. He turned it on with a hiss of static, dust rising from the old controls. It was a long shot. An old system designed for emergency situations that might, at the very least, give her more time. But it was better than nothing. As Darren fiddled with the settings, Kaylari's voice broke through the tension. "What are you doing?" "I'm trying something," he said, his hands shaking. "There's a system here that might help. It It could stabilize your body long enough to buy us time. If it works. Kayluri's eyes met his, her expression unreadable. What if it doesn't? Darren swallowed hard. Then at least I'll know I tried everything. He tapped the final command. The screen flickered to life, and the machine hummed to life. For a moment, nothing happened. Darren's heart sank. Maybe he was too late. Maybe it wouldn't work. But then Kayluri's body jerked slightly, and her eyes widened. Her breathing became a little more even. Darren, she whispered, her voice weak but hopeful. What did you do? He leaned over her, his heart pounding. I don't know yet, but it looks like it's working. For the first time that night, Kayluri smiled. A tired, but real smile. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Maybe, she whispered. Maybe I'll get a little longer. Darren held her hand tightly, knowing that he had just gambled everything on a machine. But for the first time, he felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they had a little more time. The machine hummed softly, its lights flickering gently in the dark room. Darren watched Kayluri closely, his hand still holding hers. The system had stabilized her, at least for now. But it wasn't a permanent solution. Her body was still fragile, and every breath she took seemed like a fight. But for the first time that night, there was a hint of hope. Kayluri's eyes fluttered open, and she slowly turned her head to look at Darren. Her lips parted in a small, weak smile. You did it, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Darren let out a sigh of relief. It's not perfect, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. But you're breathing better. That's something. Kayluri blinked slowly, still processing the fact that she was still alive. I didn't expect this, she said quietly. I thought I was going to die. I thought my last moments would be nothing. Not on my watch, Darren replied firmly, his voice full of determination. You deserve better than that. She reached up with one hand, her fingers brushing his cheek. You've given me more than anyone ever could. I've seen the stars. I've danced. I've laughed. I felt more alive in one night than I ever did in all my time before. Darren held her hand gently, his heart aching. You deserve to live, Kayluri. I don't care what it takes. I won't let you die without a chance. She smiled faintly, her eyes locking with his. I never had a chance to understand love, to feel what it's like to be truly alive. But in this moment, I feel it. I feel you. Her words made Darren's chest tighten. He couldn't lose her, not like this, not after everything they'd shared. There had to be a way to keep her alive, to give her a future beyond this night. He stood up, walking toward the console again, but Kayluri's weak voice stopped him. Darren, she said softly, there's nothing more you can do. I'm grateful for everything you've done, but I know what I am. I know my time is short. Darren turned back to her, shaking his head. Don't say that. There's still time. I'll figure it out. We can get you off this base. Find a cure. I won't stop. Kayluri closed her eyes, a peaceful expression on her face. I don't want to fight anymore, Darren. I've seen what I needed to see. I've lived a life, in a way, and I'm not afraid anymore. If I have to go, then I'll go in peace, knowing I wasn't just a machine. I was more. Her words left Darren speechless. He didn't want to let go. But maybe, just maybe, Kayluri was right. She had experienced more in one night than most people did in a lifetime. And that was something to be proud of. I'll always remember you, he whispered, sitting beside her once more. Kayluri smiled gently, her hand still in his. Then that's enough, she said softly, her voice full of finality. That's enough. The room was quieter now, the machine's soft hum the only sound that filled the space. Darren sat beside Kayluri, holding her hand gently in his. Her breathing had steadied, but her body was still fragile. There was no way to tell how much longer she had. But for the first time in hours, she seemed peaceful, almost content. The storm outside had passed, leaving the air still and cool. The stars were visible through the small window in the corner of the room, their light soft and distant. For a moment, it felt like time had paused, giving them this last moment of peace. Kaleri turned her head toward him, her eyes tired but clear. "Darren," she whispered, her voice soft like a breeze. "Thank you for everything. For staying with me. For showing me what it means to feel alive." Darren squeezed her hand, his voice thick with emotion. "I wish I could have done more. I wish I could have saved you. But I'm glad you felt what you needed to feel. You're not just a machine, Kaleri. You're more than that." She smiled faintly. "I never knew what love was, what life was. Until tonight. You gave me that. You gave me everything." He looked at her, his heart breaking. "You've taught me so much too. You made me realize that it's not about fixing things all the time. It's about the moments we share, about being there for each other." Kaleri's eyes closed for a moment, her hand tightening around his just slightly. I think I understand now," she said quietly. "Maybe I wasn't meant to live forever. Maybe my purpose was to experience what you humans have, to feel love, to feel warmth, even just for one night. And that's enough." Darren shook his head, fighting the tears. "No, you deserve more than that." She opened her eyes again, her gaze soft and full of understanding. "We all have our time, Darren, and I've had mine. What matters now is that I know what it feels like to truly live. I'll carry that with me, wherever I go." Darren didn't know how to respond. The words were there, but they didn't feel enough. What could he say to someone who had given him so much in so little time? What could he say to someone who had taught him the true meaning of living? "I'll never forget you," he said finally, his voice trembling. "You're part of me now. Always." Kaleri smiled, her lips barely moving. "And you'll always be part of me. Thank you for making my last night something beautiful." Her breath slowed, and for a moment, Darren was sure she was gone. But then, with a final, peaceful exhale, she closed her eyes, her hand resting in his. Her body, so full of life just hours ago, was still. Darren stayed with her, not moving, his heart heavy but full. Kaleri had come into his life for just a short time, but in that time, she had taught him more than he ever expected to learn. He leaned over her, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "I'll remember you," he whispered, as tears slipped from his eyes. "Always." And as he sat there, the stars outside seemed to shine a little brighter, because Kaleri, the alien who had come seeking life, had given him something far greater, something that would stay with him forever.